Folks, welcome back to the Freaky Deaky. We have an interesting episode for you today where we are diving into one of my favorite topics, and I'm sure Christian can agree, mimics.
No, I don't like mimics.
You love mimics. Come on, who doesn't love a good mimic story?
I had a little sister that mimicked me all the time. It was annoying.
Yeah, well, there's that, but beside that, we actually have a couple of animal mimic stories in here, which is somehow even creepier. I have one that I saved towards the end that I might not get around to doing, but I'm pretty sure it's a human that was mimicking an animal, which makes it even creepier and just a little bit sinister, but we'll get into all that and more on the inside. We'll see you there. You are now entering the realm of the Freaky Deaky, an unsuspecting stop at the crossroads of fantasy and reality, where the frayed edges of make-believe seep into this cookie-cutter white picket world you've been led to believe is far from extraordinary. What you're about to hear are true stories.
Alleged true stories.
Christian, just... okay? Tales of the strange and inexplicable thought only to exist in film and folklore. Although difficult to accept, we do not know everything about this reality, about time or space, what lies beneath the ocean's depths. And try though we might, the unchanging truth remains. There are some things we legitimately cannot explain logically. Welcome back to the Freaky Deaky. We are so thrilled to be with you once again here on this glorious, glorious Thursday, or if you're late to the show, whatever day you're checking it out. We ask one thing of you, and that is that you listen to the episode in its entirety, and if you're a fan of what you hear, you slap a 5-star review on that bad boy. It's been a long day, man. Whenever we record on Thursdays, I am, number one, agitated because I had to wake up at 3 a.m., and number two, exhausted because I had to wake up at 3 a.m. and drive to work in the cold, frigid Alaska winter.
We could have totally done this on Friday night.
We could have, but I thought, you know what? I kind of want this to be done by Friday night, the editing and all that, so that I can relax for a weekend. You know how long it's been since I've relaxed for a weekend? It's been many moons. And I gotta tell you, the added stress adding on top of my already stressful life and entering tax season, no doubt, is not great for my mental health. But you're not here for that. You're here to slap a 5-star review on this bad boy. And if you review on Apple Podcasts, much like Marlene did 8-ish weeks ago, I might have done the math right on that. Thank you, Marlene. And also, I think Steven did as well. You guys really came in clutch. You know why? Because nobody had reviewed on Apple Podcasts in so long. And it had been 4 or 5 months. And I was beginning to think that it would never come again. But bless both of your hearts for doing that. And anyone who has done that post this recording. You truly are gentlemen and gentle ladies and scholars. So now that we got that out of the way, find us on social media at Freaky Deaky Pod. You know the drill. Join the Facebook group, do all the fun stuff. Go check out the YouTube page. We got a few different shows popping off now, and that is set through at least June, where if I have more free time, we'll have more shows, and if I don't, then June will be the end of the YouTube. Apologies. So get it while you can.
Sounds like you're not being totally honest there.
What do you mean?
June will not be the end of the YouTube.
It might be. Depending on if I get a nice block of time to record a bunch of shit again, that's beautiful. Because me sitting right now, I'm not going to age ourselves where we are in time at this current moment, but it's beautiful having a nice catalog to look forward to. But as time eats away at that, you're like, damn, I got to, here it comes. Here comes the tsunami of work again. Not for me. Not for me. And we'll see. Who knows? Maybe the show doesn't even last till June. Maybe some crazy thing takes place.
Oh my gosh, please stop.
Maybe the end of the world is happening.
Stop.
Maybe bombs are falling all around us, folks. You really want to tune into the spooky ghost show when bombs are falling all around you?
They're going to need to.
It'll be your one saving grace.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's get into some mimic stories, shall we? Christian, how are you doing? I swear to God, if you say wonderful.
Extraordinary.
Well, that works. See, that's a change. That's a change up. There's plenty of synonyms you could use. Yes. That just it lets people know that I'm not co-hosting with AI. And that was their fear for the longest time now, is that you were AI. And I had to talk him down, Beck. He's not a robot, I promise.
Kind of am.
He just plays one on a podcast.
Cyborg.
How long do you think it would take for people to catch on if you were like, I got to leave for a month and I just used your voice and just wrote a bunch of nonsense?
It would be nonsense, so they'd pick up on it really quick.
They'd be like, well, this all checks out. Is that Christian? No.
I thought Christian didn't believe in the devil.
So anyway, the devil was there, right, Christian? Yes. We're just all the sound bites I have nonstop. What do you think about that, Christian?
Penis.
Wow. Very unprofessional.
Why is that unprofessional.
Because you don't know what the story was about yet. But we're going to get into that right now. This first story is called Something is Mimicking My Cat, and it's by Disaster Piece. Something is pretending to be my cat. The end. I'm currently in bed right now. I was hearing these meows, but they weren't any of my cat's meows. Exactly. It sounded extremely off, like a person or thing trying to imitate a cat. I know it isn't any of my two cats because I have both of them next to me right now. Every time I hear the meows in the hallway, I get an extremely eerie vibe, like something horrible is about to happen. I have no clue what the hell is in the hallway as I'm too scared to check it out. I've always heard these things trying to replicate voices of my loved ones, but never animals. I'm terrified and don't know what to do.
First off,
Go check that hallway. Maybe it's a lone cat, maybe a stray cat.
maybe it's a ghost cat.
Ghost cats, hello.
First off, go to the doctor.
Oh, are they mentally ill?
I don't know, but that's usually after you check the hallway, go to the doctor, and then you can decide after that if you need to figure out why things are mimicking your loved ones and your cats.
Yeah.
Maybe you should listen when they're mimicking the loved ones.
No, that's always a bad idea.
Go to the cat.
That's always a bad idea.
And the cat seems like a good idea.
The cat is at least, you're like, well, it could just be a cat out there. Maybe a cat got in. Yeah, actually, there was one story of someone talking about, I think their apartment or something like that. They saw a random tail moving outside the door and like freaked out because they were like, my cat is next to me. And it turned out to be like the old landlord's apartment. And the cat had gotten lost and just went back to a familiar place. So stayed with this person for a week until the landlord picked it up. Very weird. But that's the type of story I want. I want random stray cats coming to my home and be like, oh my God, a new friend. Please don't attack me.
Do you ever think maybe cats exist in different dimensions, like the weird stuff they do, the weird stuff they must see or pretend to see? I don't know. Maybe they just have a good imagination, but when they start doing that weird stuff and you
staring in corners, running up and down,
chasing things that aren't there, maybe they're in this reality and then
simultaneously,
jumping back and forth, playing with the other cat.
I like to think that that's what is happening. I like to think that they're interdimensional simultaneously to where they can see both. And they're like, why is my human not freaking out about this weird demon that's hanging out in the corner of our room?
A cat probably wouldn't be freaked out over a demon. It'd be freaked out over something nice.
Why is there an ice cream cone in the corner? Classic stuff, really. Yeah, mimic stories, man. Creepy. Not a big fan. Oh, I'm a big fan of like the horror element of it. Like the creepy factor is dope. And just the thought of half of these stories alone sends shivers up my spine. But definitely don't want to experience it. Have you ever heard what you think someone is like calling you from a different room and you go in there and you're like, what? And they're like, I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever like yelled your name or something to like where you, like it's loud enough to like, I know you said something, right?
I've had things that seemed like that, but most of the time it was when I was by myself. So
you're like, well, I'm definitely not going over there because there's no one there.
I would go check. I ain't like this guy, the scaredy cat with his cat on his bed.
I mean, you never know.
That guy. You got to go check, man. I'm going to cower.
At the very least, just crack open the door and be like, is there a cat out here?
Yeah.
And if you look and it's a hairy demon cat, then close the door again and go cuddle with your little fur folks.
Also, just tell it to leave you alone. Some of these spirits or whatever they may be will listen. Some may get vengeance for you telling it what to do, but
yeah, they're not a big fan of that, turns out sometimes.
Yeah, most of the time you'll be asleep when they do that, so you just wake up in heaven or wherever we go.
Where do we go when we die? Anyway, this next one is called Old Houses Have Strange Noises. And it's by Sweet Queen Bee. So Beyonce's over here writing ghost stories. That old hag. That's right, I said it. Come after me, Jay-Z. I dare you. That's his laugh at the beginning of every song.
I feel like you need to
Fight Jay-Z?
Listen to the fictional character Thumper's mom.
Thumper's mom? Are we talking Bambi?
Yeah.
Don't remember Thumper or Thumper. I remember Thumper, I guess, not Thumper's mom.
Well, I don't think we saw the mom, but he told us what she would tell him.
What was that?
If you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all.
Well, here's the thing. Thumper can suck a fat one. And I think most of us can agree that any Disney character, for that matter, can really just hit the old dusty trail and never be seen again. And we probably wouldn't cry too much over it.
I disagree.
The bunny is cute. I'll give you that. But outside of that, I don't need life advice from a rabbit. Okay. If I did that last time I did that, it was tricks. All right. Last time I listened to a damn rabbit.
Well, that's the sugar industrial complex. That's different.
That is true.
You know,
comes for all of us at some point till you hit an age where you just start losing weight because you're working so much and not eating a lot, and you wonder if you're slowly dying. That's for another episode.
We're all slowly dying.
That is true.
Some faster than others,
and some much slower than those people. Anyway, Sweet Queen Bee writes, I grew up in a huge 140-year-old home, which my mom had fully restored to its original glory with her own 2 hands. Wow. Way to go.
Impressive.
Very impressive. Unless it was like a rinky-dink tiny house or something like that. You're like, okay, not as impressive, but still.
Is this mom single?
And maybe she's ready to mingle. She was a remarkable and very talented woman and adored the old place to no end. I, on the other hand, had many terrifying experiences there. Anyhow, late one night, I was watching TV in the front living room after my mom had gone to bed approximately 2 hours prior. I had seen her, in bed, sleeping soundly not long before this particular incident. I had gone to the kitchen to get a snack and had just returned to my seat in the living room when I had heard my mom holler my name, urgently, from the basement. I was confused, but not afraid yet because it sounded exactly like her. Her workshop was located down there, and I was very accustomed to her calling me down for one reason or another my entire childhood. I quickly approached the door when the voice hollered my name for a third time, but this time there was a very angry tone. My initial fear was that my mom was angry with me and I was in trouble. But wait, she's upstairs in her room sound asleep, right? Thank God I went upstairs to confirm she was indeed soundly sleeping and even snoring. I awoke her and told her what was happening and got her typical response, saying, "This is a very old house, honey, and old houses have strange noises. I have so many awful stories in my years spent in that house and never had anyone to turn to for help." That sounds like my childhood. Not nearly as creepy. I didn't have voices calling me from beyond, sounding like my parents or anything, thankfully. But plenty of weird shit that I saw that I was like, you know what? Wish I didn't see that.
Mom wasn't wrong, though.
That is, old houses do make strange noises, yes, but old houses don't usually call you down to the basement, you know?
But they might make you think they're calling you down to the basement. Maybe it's not an old house. Maybe it's the primordial gods trying to set us straight. Yes. And there might be death involved in it, because sometimes you have to die.
There's got to be a sacrifice
for others to live.
Yes.
You know, but...
Indeed, yeah, the old sacrifice. Beautiful. That reminds me of you remember those 2-sentence horror stories? Have you ever read any of those?
Yeah.
The one where someone was like, I heard my mom calling me from upstairs, and as I went upstairs, she grabbed me and said, I heard it too, or something like that. Like, just creepy shit like where you're just like, ugh, no thanks.
That's a good story.
It is, and it's very creepy. That I was always like, well, good thing that never happens, and then I find a bunch of stories of that exact thing happening, and I'm like, oh, I guess never mind. Maybe it does happen.
So your feelings on the story are what?
It just sounds, I don't know. It doesn't sound great, you know, especially because if it was just like a calling the name, like, hey, come down here. That's one thing. But after the second or third and getting angry, you're like, oh, that does not feel like it has great intentions.
So if you I've heard things call my name before and seemingly yell my name.
I would love to hear some of these examples, yeah.
But most of the time, I think, in my case, it was obviously in my head.
A demon? Oh.
Yeah, not a demon this time. Sorry, listeners.
That's too bad.
The demons don't...
Had a great opportunity for it to be a demon there, Christian.
The demons don't like me. I do all this shit and deny their existence.
The demons love you, Christian.
And just talk shit about them, and they don't show up. If you figure if they were big bad demons, they would be like, I'm real. And I'm like, but you're not.
But see, that's the game, is you talking shit. They're like, hey, that's our ball game, pal. We talk shit too. Welcome to the team. High fives all around.
Oh, you know demons now.
I do.
But in most of the examples that I've experienced, I felt like it was just, for some reason, some part of my brain's calling my name or playing something that I hear. I don't know what it is. I mean, there's a couple of times where I'm like, what the hell?
Now, would you say that you were on like the cusp of sleep when you hear that? Or have you been like wide awake and heard that?
Both.
Yeah. The sleep part, I definitely understand. Because there's even like that whole exploding head syndrome and whatnot where, you know, you'll hear just random loud ass noises or something you're just on the brink of sleep. Shout out to a movie from like 2003, Brink. Wow. The way my memory works sometimes, not cool. Anyway. Yeah, I've had those where you're falling asleep and you either hear your name whispered or like a loud noise or something. Like, what the hell was that? But I don't think, and if I did, then my brain completely blocked it out after that. I was like, you don't need to remember that at all. But yeah, being wide awake, I don't think I've ever heard anything close to that. I know Seth sent us a voicemail a while ago talking about him hearing, I think something mimicking his daughter or something like that a couple times or maybe once. But thankfully, I haven't endured that.
The problem with this kind of thing, too, is it's always hard to judge what's real and what's not in these cases because your brain will do weird stuff like that.
Sometimes. I think if it's a quick thing, then yeah, you can maybe write it off. But something like this where it's calling you multiple times, like one, I'll give you that. But like 2, 3 times and the tone changes over time. You're like, well, wait a second. That's when I'm thinking, no, that's definitely not the brain tagging you with some. It's clearly a demon in the basement, which if they're going to reside anywhere would be in the basement. Let's be honest. Or the attic if you have one.
It's clearly a demon unless maybe you're not hydrated properly and the electricity in your body isn't firing right. You have something going on that maybe as the wiring in the brain is functioning, that something gets crossed. I mean, there's plenty of legitimate health reasons.
Then why wouldn't it say, get a Gatorade or drink some water? Why is it going to be the parent screaming for the kid?
It could have been something simple as one of these things are tickling certain memories. And so a memory is produced of your mother getting angry at you because you're not listening, which we all have. I can still hear my mom when she was angry at me, yelling at me, and
sure,
she's no longer here. So maybe I am being visited by a ghost.
I actually can't hear, like when I'm away from people for a while, I can't even picture their voices. Like I can't remember what my mom sounds like when she's yelling because I've been grown for so long and we've had a great relationship my entire adult life. I can't even remember my own brother's voice, and he's only been passed away for 4 or 5 years now.
That's interesting because I don't have a great memory, but I can still hear my mom's voice yelling it, or what I think's my mom's voice. Like, like what
I try to picture it sometimes. I'm like, what did that sound like? But no.
Yeah. So our memory does slowly go, or it gets changed as things go on. So that's a possibility.
So I guess it could be a demon.
No.
Oh, well, I thought that's where we were headed.
I thought we were talking mimics. Mimics aren't necessarily demons.
I'm so glad you said that right now, because this next story is called Taunted by a Demon. And then in parentheses, I put or entity so Christian doesn't get triggered. And it's by Danielle Marie. I don't know why you'd think a mimic is anything other than at least demonic in nature. If it's mimicking something you love and it's not like a kind thing, it seems weird. That seems like a weird play for something that is not like malicious intent or anything like that to do. Trying to call you away or call you to a room.
Sounds like a trickster to me.
Yeah, but even tricksters are a little demonic.
No, they're not.
You think they're just messing around like, haha, this will get them?
I mean, in the Christian religion, a trickster would be demonic, but in other religions, they're just a trickster.
Well, I mean, it's similar.
A raven.
If you look at like Islam
Loki
and stuff, everything is a jinn, right?
But Islam
the Christian religion, yeah, a lot of stuff is demonic.
Islam is basically the same religion as Christianity and Judaism.
That's a hard no from me, my friend.
It's the same God.
They 100% say that Jesus was a prophet and wasn't crucified and didn't die on a cross, which is historically inaccurate.
But God is God.
Sure, God is God.
In the Abrahamic religions, they're all related. It's the same God. Jesus is important in all three. Maybe not important enough for Christians to be happy with, but that's fine.
But it's
the same religion.
Here's the thing.
In a lot of ways.
If the emphasis of Christianity is on Jesus Christ dying and being raised from the dead, and you go to Islam and they say, oh no, Jesus wasn't crucified.
He was one of the most important prophets.
Yeah, but
that's not a big difference.
Historically accurate, Jesus was crucified. And historically accurate, if you look back far enough and in the right accounts, was raised from the dead. Which means that if Islam is preaching that Jesus was just a prophet, nothing more, then they're leading people astray. Plain and simple.
Well, also, there's only one source that says Jesus was crucified.
What source is that?
There's only one source that says he rose from the dead.
What source is that?
You know which source? The good book.
I'm glad you said the good book. What you should have said is the correct book. And it's not just because it was written that way. It's because if you can actually trace it back to people that were alive in that day. You know how many people saw
trace
Jesus alive after he was raised from the dead?
How many of those writings do we have? Not many.
We have several that aren't even religious people that were talking about Jesus and whatnot back in the day.
We don't even have the Roman records of this. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying there's not as much evidence as you think.
That's a pretty bold claim to say we don't have Roman records of it, because there are actually people in that exact time frame that were not Christians, and in fact were on the opposite side of that, mentioning these things.
We're going to continue this talk
I know.
later.
I don't think people enjoy that every episode you bring up Jesus and then I have to like defend my religion.
I didn't even bring up Jesus.
But you did?
No.
Yeah,
you don't have to defend your religion with me. I made a statement. It's the Abrahamic religions. They're pretty similar on some of their demons.
Similar, yes, which is the best way.
That's all I said.
If you're going to lead people astray, that's the best way to do it, is have the same story but twist it just a little bit.
No, it's just, I mean, it's the same story because all three of the
Here we go.
The religion stories come from the same place in the beginning. The way they explain it might be a little different and all that stuff, but basically, all three, God is God. I am wrong. Let's move on. I don't even know how we got here.
We got here because
you defended your religion again when I wasn't even attacking it.
No, you're not attacking it, but if you say that they're the same, I'm going to correct you and say, but they're not.
The same is the wrong word.
They have similarities.
They're the Abrahamic religions. All the characters are pretty similar.
Pretty similar being
and
a key word
the same characters in a lot of cases, going back to the beginning. I mean, that's why it's Abrahamic, because of Abraham.
Sure. Go for that. What I'm saying is that there is only one truth. And if you want answers to that, you can hit me up in the messages or something.
There's only one truth.
There is.
And somebody will tell you their truth, because it's their one and only truth.
That's new age shit right there. I'm going to speak my truth.
No, that's just making
There's
fun
one
of
truth, my friend.
No. And we don't know it, or we would have the shit figured out.
You may not know it. I am full aware of it.
We would have everything figured out if we knew it.
I have plenty figured out, but that's fine.
So do I. So do I.
Do you see what I mean when I said or entity, so Christian doesn't get triggered? This whole thing, this was just the title of the story.
I find it hilarious.
You
always blame me for being triggered over this stuff. I just say something and then you feel like you have to defend stuff. And you never have to defend stuff with me. Mostly it's just a dumbass statement on my part.
I know, but see, our listeners aren't aware of like some of the nuance of your fibs. And so you throw something out there. Just for our listeners, I say, no, I got to correct that, because I don't want people listening to this show and thinking that I agree with what you said when the actual truth is far different from what you said. So I correct it. And then you say something, and then I say something, and then we get into a whole thing. And then we're here 10 minutes after saying the title of a story, still talking about it, because I needed our listeners to know that what you had said was false.
All you have to say is, I don't agree with that. And we can move on.
No.
Because all our listeners know us.
So why if I talk about demons, you can't just be like, I don't agree with that.
I do all the time.
No, you're like, no, what it is, it's the brain. And then, well, science hasn't proven. And you're like, okay,
what it is,
dude.
a lie is the brain.
No,
you can't take the brain out of it. Not everything, not all these voices are demons. Most of the time, it's our fucking brain.
No, our brain isn't that powerful. Our brain can do crazy things, sure, but it's not going to hallucinate voices left and right.
Never?
It's not going to, not never, but it's not going to do it constantly. I can promise you that.
Okay.
Okay is right, man. Trust me. I've been around the block a few times.
I wish you had the button of your son saying okay, because this would be the perfect time for me to use it.
I wish I did too. What a beautiful soundbite that'd be. But I'm going to go ahead and get into the story. Don't worry, I'm not going to read you're going to interrupt 100 times anyway, because it's about like demons and demonic activity.
I'm sorry if you like demons, and I'm just not impressed by them.
I don't like demons so much.
First off, the leader of demons, in the grand scheme of things,
here we go,
is pretty weak.
Sure. Are you saying that because you're just beautiful?
No, he's just pretty weak. He's not that impressive.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to fight you on that. Like, how dare you? But it's fine. Anyway, this story is by Danielle Marie, and if you don't remember what it's called, rewind 15 minutes, and you can find it there. One of the most frightening nights that I have ever experienced was when a demon did this to me. Talking about mimicking.
Roof eater.
Okay. Gotta take it there, don't you? This experience started by me trying to go to sleep.
That's the way it starts.
I kept hearing rustling in the grass outside of my bedroom windows.
What kind of grass does this person have?
Did you see what I said? I was like, you're going to interrupt 50 times anyway. And this is exactly what you do when you get a little like, you get jokey when it's demons and stuff. And so I can never get through an actual demon story.
No, I just don't understand how the grass is so loud. But
you don't understand how grass rustles when people walk on it?
Are they in the fucking Kalahari Desert?
Maybe it's the fall. Maybe it's autumn. People crunching leaves outside.
Yeah, I guess if it's Kalahari Desert, it wouldn't be grass. But...
yeah, it would most likely be sand.
All right, tell the story. I'll shut up.
We'll see. So yeah, classic. This experience started by me trying to go to sleep. I kept hearing rustling in the grass outside of my bedroom windows. It sounded like someone was walking back and forth from window to window. I looked outside and there was no one there. This wasn't surprising because this type of activity in my life had become pretty common. I had been dealing with demonic oppression for a while. Anything to say? No?
Yeah.
No, I bet you do. This night was different though. When I tried to lay down, I'm just going to say entity because I feel like that maybe calms you a little bit. So I'm going to say the entity, but for people listening at home, whenever I say entity, it's actually demon. The entity became very active. It started to walk faster and faster between the windows. Then the windows began to make the sounds of being thrown open and then slammed shut. They never actually moved though. This went on for a while and I started to hear someone calling out, "Mom, Mom." It was the voice of my oldest daughter coming from the woods outside. I knew that it wasn't actually her because it was 1 a.m. and she lived 2 states away from me. After this started happening, the demon went back to walking around outside of the windows. Its footsteps started speeding up and it started running. It ran up to the front door of my house and the door made the sound of being thrown open. I jumped out of my bed and ran to my bedroom door. As I was standing there, I could hear the demon running towards my bedroom. I had no lock on my door, so I braced myself against it, hoping to keep the entity out. Well, that time I actually did say entity. The entity ran all the way up to the door and then everything went silent. I had been praying the whole time. I believed that this worked to keep this entity from entering my room. After it reached the door, the activity stopped. The Lord saved me. Demons...
Is that what it says?
It does say that, yeah. I put emphasis on it so that it wouldn't trigger you. Demons can mimic any voice that they want to. They have done this with the voices of both of my children. It sounded exactly like them. These entities can manipulate sound, light, and matter. Sometimes, even if you hear or see them, someone else may not. Interesting.
Okay, let's say this to the demon.
Well, she said it's a demon. You can call it whatever you'd like for your own
What's
sanity.
The first thing the priests are going to say when they show up to determine whether there needs to be an exorcism?
I believe they check psychological issues first.
Yeah, so they would make sure that you went to see your mental health professional, which is what they should do.
Or they put you in touch with someone if you don't have them. Yes,
because that'll take out some of the
possibilities.
Yeah, and cut down their workload a little bit. So they're only dealing with real demons, not the demons in our head,
not the demons of the mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but how do you differentiate between a real demon and a demon of the mind then? If they're both very similar in their actions.
I know how I would differentiate them.
Because you'd call them all demons of the mind. That would make it very easy for you.
Because again, let's look at this story.
Yes.
I mean, okay, fine. This person was terrified. I get it. We've all been in...
Ha, ha, ha. What a baby. Yeah, classic terrified
We've
person.
all been in places where we're terrified of something. And luckily for most of us, most of the time, we're like, oh, shit, that was nothing.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to make fun of that part. But also, whatever this demon is walking around outside, running back and forth, being stupid, this is what I'm saying. Demons are kind of like scary to us. I love a good demon movie, but most of the shit most of them do, you're like, do you even have any power?
Well, that's the thing is they don't have actual power. The whole thing is fear-based. Right. How do I scare this person?
So don't be scared.
It's simple to say that, sure. But given the situation, if I was thrown in the midst of that, I would probably be freaking out too. Especially, I mean, look, hearing something outside your window, crunching around in the grass, it's outside, you're like, whatever. But the second you hear the front door slam open and something running towards you or up the stairs or whatever towards your bedroom, I'm sorry, that's freaky as hell.
It would be freaky.
Hold on. It keeps glitching, man. I don't know what. Man, I really hope my computer's not on the fritz because this show might be done. Might actually be done by June if my computer decides to take a shit on me.
Shut up. We'll figure out something.
Yeah. So anyway, like I get the second I hear something crashing up the stairs toward me, it's an entirely different ball game. Like you got that fight or flight coming towards you. You're like, no, I got to brace myself against this door because this thing is very real, even if it's just a sound. Like we've heard plenty of stories. I'm trying to think of the last, maybe it was a Ouija board episode or something where these girls were playing with the Ouija board and they hear like slamming downstairs and footsteps like running up the stairs to the door that stopped dead at the door and no more sound after that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's, I don't know. I think these things happen in different instances. It's not just obviously this demon or this mimic or whatever, but the fact that it's talking in the daughter's voice, being like, Mom, like, no, man, fuck that. I'm out.
I mean, theoretically, it could be a demon, but
theoretically, yes.
Theoretically, it could be in your mind.
They could also be Pan. She didn't mention a forest outside, so you never know.
Yeah, but Pan's not that scary.
Well, you hear mimic stories a lot about with forests. You hear like voices calling you from the woods and stuff. And granted, someone in my belief system would obviously be like, well, that's a demon, no doubt. But other people have been like, it's forest spirits or nymphs or fairies or whatever, you know?
Which makes more sense to me than demons.
I think if you believe in fairies, nymphs, or forest spirits, then you also have to throw demons in there.
No, because the forest nymphs and all that stuff are older than demons.
You made it up. You made it up. You're Christian, you made it up. Actually, you just sat right there. Pulled it right out of your ass. I made it up. Made it up. You made it up.
I don't know if you can prove that, but it's fine.
I mean, at a certain point in history, there's actually writings where demons are mentioned. But fairies and all that other stuff came before that.
Well, how do you know if there's no writings?
Because it was written down later, and some of these things you can trace the oral traditions back, or the stone, the artwork, or whatever. So
You made it up. You made it up. You're Christian, you made it up. Actually, you just sat right there. Pulled it right out of your ass. I made it up. Made it up.
Hell yeah.
that's a history lesson. We're not doing history yet.
That's true. And we're also not doing fake history yet. But it's fine. We'll get into that at some point. Everyone else is. You learn fake history when you go to school. Isn't that nice?
Do you, though?
Kind of. If you think about it, a lot of things have been altered.
I think you learn sanitized history. It's not necessarily fake. It's just
that's just a fancier word.
It's propaganda history in
doesn't
school.
That make it fake, though?
Not necessarily.
It doesn't make it true, accurate history. It means, we're going to miss all the actual bad shit.
I feel like
how great we were.
We need to bring out that old quote that history is written by the victors.
Sure. Very true.
That's why you, like, as a historian, you have to find multiple sources. You have to trace things. You have to
be
go,
like, what would the defeated people have said about this?
Or what would the poor people?
Well, they didn't matter. Christian, obviously, they had no money.
Well, and they couldn't read or write, so nobody wrote their stories.
They probably couldn't speak either. They're just mute, bumping into each other on the streets.
No, they spoke. They say, yes, I'll do that.
Please, sir, may I have some more?
Yeah.
Classic stuff, really. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into this next story called The Mimic House. It's by Hexa. If my computer can decide not to take a shit for 5 minutes. It might just be a memory issue. I might just have too much stuff stored on here.
Yeah, I've been working hard on our episodes lately.
There's been a lot of extra information and files saved on this bad boy over the past couple months, so I got a clean house.
Like, I just woke up expecting a normal day, and Scott's like, let's record.
I know. My mom's leaving soon, dude. I'm like, we got to get as far ahead. And there might even be one more recording session before she leaves next Friday, which is depressing the hell out of me, but we're not going to think about that right now.
She'll be back.
She'll be back at some point, I'm sure of it. Anyway, Hexa writes, one of the most common kinds of activity in our house is hearing a mimic of one of our voices.
Well, before you go into the story,
yes,
don't take it wrong.
Oh, here we go.
Mimicry is very fascinating. Like, why do we hear these things? So I am very fascinated by
it is
this
a fascinating
process.
Subject, yes.
Just because I don't think it's demons most of the time.
Or evil. You don't think it's evil either, which is
I think
kind
most
of
things aren't evil.
I know, which is, again, for a show like this, Christian, you kind of got to get on board with evil at some point.
No, because I think the evil part is more of a human thing. What we do with what the information and the beliefs we have, we tend to make things evil really quick sometimes.
I could really take that into another 20-minute tangent on moral compass and whatnot, but I'm not going to.
Because you'd
I'll
be
save
wrong.
That for, I'll do like a solo video where I'll rip it apart for 30 minutes.
You can't do a solo video and rip it apart without
I absolutely
me.
can. I can. You know why? Because then it's like, this is what I'm trying to say without being interrupted 20 times. The end. And then we move on.
No wonder you like debate. This is your time to speak. Nobody must interrupt you and tell questions.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're trying to get a point across, then yeah, you need that free air to get your point across. And then after that, it's the rebuttal. Okay, now you say your piece, For me, if I can't get it across, then our listeners are the ones who get hurt by this, I should say. That's fine, Christian. You mean well. You honestly do. And you try to make it seem like it's not evil.
It's not evil.
Exactly. See, you're doing it right now. It's fine. But anyway, so yes, the most common activity in their house is hearing a mimic of one of their voices. Most often it's just calling one of our names, but we've had more intense experiences as well. Sometimes it sounds like normal beckoning, but sometimes it sounds angry or troubled. See, again with the anger and troubled, not so much, but that's a new one. I once heard my, quote, dad angrily shout out to me, "Dinner's ready!" Oh, I got upset because I couldn't understand what I did to make him so mad. When I made my way to the kitchen, he and my mom were still busy cooking. I asked him why he yelled at me, and I snapped back that I wasn't even hungry. They looked at me confused and assured me it didn't happen. They didn't hear it. My mom and I once heard my, quote again, dad call her name, then urgently yell for help. We immediately thought he'd fallen in the shower. Classic. My mom started panicking, ran to the bathroom, and barged in on him. She scared the crap out of him. He swore he was fine and hadn't said a word. She came out of the bathroom stunned. It took her a while for her adrenaline to come down. A particularly weird instance occurred when my sister and I were sitting together on the couch. We were talking and laughing when we suddenly heard what sounded exactly like her laughing in the kitchen. We heard quiet talking, so quiet we couldn't hear what was said, and then again her laughing before it stopped. There wasn't anyone else home. There are more instances, but that's what I'll contribute for now. Everyone in my house has stories, as do many people who've come to visit. Some of our friends still talk about their experiences at our house whenever the conversation turns to ghosts. Although I've learned to live with it, I'll admit it's still initially jarring every time.
What if it was just infrasound?
What do you mean?
Like the way the house was built wasn't proper, so it produced the sound that...
But isn't infrasound pretty much undetectable? Like, isn't it like such a low...
Consciously undetectable, but something detects it because it fucks with our brain.
Look, I don't know anything outside of evil, but if I were to absolutely take a stab in the dark at something that let's say it's not demons, it's not evil or malevolent, nothing malicious involved, just random voices. The idea that there is, every single decision you make is a separate reality or whatever. If you're
multiverse shit.
Possibly, yeah. If you're maybe in some kind of weird vortex, or if your house is built on a weird vortex, maybe you hear occasionally the other, like a different dimension or a different reality or something like that coming through. If it's the acoustics in the house, who knows? That'd be a really weird say. But if I were to guess anything outside of demons, I'd probably say that.
And I'm not saying that this is going to happen. That's the problem is a lot of times when we hear these stories, especially when you hear these stories, it's either demons or evil or not.
Yes.
But there's other choices too. And in a lot of cases, these other things do come into play. Not necessarily a vast amount of times.
Sure.
But there's many very little things that can happen to cause these things. Could it be demons? Yeah. If they exist.
If they exist,
this is what they would do. They would torture us.
They would.
But if they did exist, they'd torture us more because that would be funny to them.
Absolutely. And partially somewhat funny to us as well, if you really step back and think about it.
I mean, it's funny to me because when I hear some of these stories, I'm like, dude, why didn't you just kill him?
Just kill who? The demon?
The demon. Why didn't the demon just...
Well, because it's a disembodied voice. It's not like they're standing right there mimicking them. If
so they have no power.
Well, we kind of touched on that already. Yeah, they don't have power.
Only the power we give them.
It's like...
Only the power in our minds.
In our mind's eye. It's like if you have a mouse right here on this couch, right?
Do they have hantavirus?
They do, hopefully.
Bubonic plague?
Yep. And if you shine a flashlight from back here, the shadow of that mouse on this wall over here is going to be gigantic and it's going to look terrifying until you realize that what's actually causing that is this tiny mouse over here. So, yes, they can't actually do anything to you, but their whole plan is to deceive you, is to freak you out, is to scare you, all these things, right?
Very convenient.
And that's what they do.
Very convenient.
Well, I mean, they don't actually have power. I mean, I guess some do if you're not, well, I'm not going to get into logistics of, salvation or anything like that, but it's fine. The whole thing is based on fear. I agree, Christian. I agree. Anyway, This next one is called Evil and Dangerous Beings by Ian Thomas. So as you can imagine, Christian, what direction you think he's going to be leaning? They're lovely. No. It says mimics are very dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had one myself. They cause untold pain, injury, and bad luck, feeding off your misery. It almost feels like a doppelganger thing at that point, right? Like where it's isn't that kind of a lore behind I forget every time, to be honest. And we've talked about doppelgangers a lot.
I think doppelgangers,
It's more of a bad omen, right?
or just weirdness in a lot of cases. Like,
It do be
why
like
is
that.
there two of you?
Why is there two of me? Classic. Yeah, it says, if you encounter a mimic, don't wait and contact either a well-known and approved shaman or psychic or someone from a church. Well,
Psychologist.
Three wildly different things.
Yeah, well, I mean, a shaman is just a different religion's church man in a way.
Magic man. But yeah, I guess. And a psychic is just, well, we know. And it's fine. We're not going to tear anyone down. We know that some of our audience goes to psychics. It's fine.
I'm cool with that.
Have fun. Christian's cool with that. You hear that?
Don't go to John Edwards. What was the girl's name that used to be popular?
Miss Cleo?
No, she was like a New York woman.
A
white
New
woman.
York woman. A New York white woman.
She's dead now. Sylvia something. Sylvia Brown.
Sylvia. Okay. Yeah. That's checking out. I thought you said she was white. No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. I need it.
It's got an E at the end.
Oh, okay. There you go.
It's not the original Brown.
Does it have an E at the end? I thought it was just BROWN.
I feel like it had an E. I read her book many years ago. I don't remember.
Of course. Anyway, I needed assistance from a psychically gifted reverend with the Corinthian faith.
What?
I know, that's quite the ask. She cleared it out. I suffered for many years, losing most everything. I once thought I got rid of it, but it kept calling my name while going outside after dark. That'd be creepy. No thanks. The shaman didn't fully remove the spirit, and the person who first dabbled summoning it hated my guts and wanted me to be in pain. After 10 years of untold misery, it fed off. My mother passed. I heard her voice calling my name twice over, always twice for some reason, from outside. A way of showing it was wherever it wanted to be. Ghostly hands appearing on windscreen and back car windows, in the car body, things getting thrown or going missing, too hot or cold, rats appearing in the house for no reason. Well, there's usually a reason for rats. Machines breaking down with no cause. Footsteps, shadow figures disappearing from view. People didn't like visiting anymore. Hey, you don't say, man. You're living in a rat den with no appliances working. It's not exactly a hospitable environment.
Hanging out with shamans and
hell yeah,
Corinthian priest.
Hell yeah. It followed me, spoiling meetings. Everything was driving me to despair. Constant pain, no money, nothing working out no matter what I did. Always sick, pets dying suddenly, ornaments tipping off shelves in the middle of the night in empty rooms, too many tears, screws and coins flying across the room to bounce off the wall near my head. Horrific. Readings off psychics who said something was deliberately blocking what they saw for my future and a shadow around me. Then by chance I met a Corinthian priest. By chance, always. That's the only way to do it, man. I haven't intentionally met one, but I don't even know what that is, right? Like, I mean,
they're just really good on the Corinthians.
Yeah, they just study 1 Corinthians.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I got everything from Paul. It's fine.
I got a black market Corinthians in my closet. You want to see it?
Very nice. That sounds more perverted than it should have. Then, by chance, I met a Corinthian priest who picked up immediately on who called up the entity, manufactured by another's dabbling and outright hatred for me, and cleared it out at last. It was a fight. I pictured, what's his name? Willem Dafoe. It was a firefight.
What's that from?
Boondock Saints, maybe?
Oh, I haven't
classic.
seen that in a long time.
It's a great movie. Still has the single greatest line of all time. And it's, what's his name? I can't remember any of the characters or anything, but...
No, it was from Daryl?
No, it was the scraggly guy with the long hair where he's like screaming at some woman. Like some woman like mouthed off to him. He's like, damn it, I can't buy a pack of smokes without running into 9 guys you fucked.
Oh,
to me, I'm like, damn, that was the single greatest line of cinema history when I watched that at like 18 or 19. But it's fine. It's now I need to go watch Boondock Saints again. It's time. Anyway, it was a fight. This time she had a black candle, trapping it to take it from my house, and then later, with other psychics, finally send it away.
Wait, was this Corinthian priest a female?
Sounds like it.
Very fascinating story.
Yeah, I gotta look into what Corinthian priests are. I feel like I've heard that, but I feel like I've only heard that once or twice in my life. And so I have zero context for it.
I feel like this is bullshit, but...
Oh, well, that's interesting. You almost never feel away. I began healing after 7 years, unending injuries and illnesses. After 7 years of unending injuries and illnesses. The love of my life returned. That person who summoned the thing visited once, bringing another entity that nowhere near as potent, did its own damage over 3 weeks before the priest returned. The summoner is banished from my home and my life while I try to rebuild mine. I probably would have been the first thing I did if I saw him again. Back, fuck no, no, you go away. You don't bring any more weird entities. As a side note, that person is not quite 50. Needs a walker, hole and a flap in the heart, depression, constant migraines, IBS, depression again, vertigo, stroke that blew out the frontal left lobe and can't channel anymore. The priest said what was sent out always bounces back threefold, and what will be, will be. Won't go near this person despite being an ordained priest, for she says the woman is simply evil in her spirit. That was a ride, man. That was an absolute ride.
And I don't mean to discredit this person, but if you take out the mimics and add in drugs, the story sounds the same.
Wow. This story somewhat reminded me of, for either After Dark or the musical, I was working on a lizard person story or episode. And let me tell you, you got to really sift through, you gotta sift through those stories, because they are some of the absolute worst spelled.
Those are the stories you get through and you're like, wait, now am I crazy?
It took me 20 minutes to read one because I swear to God, every third word was misspelled. And I was like, is this person 8 or unstable?
Well, and I want to point out that just because in this case, every other word was misspelled, that doesn't necessarily mean the person's stupid. Some people just don't spell well.
Yes.
And then when they're in a situation when they're talking about lizard people, they get a little kooky, so they spell even worse.
It was like, honestly, I found so many stories, but really only like 3 or 4 of them are going to make the cut, because everything else was so wild that I'm like, this person legitimately needs help. And I almost never say that, I almost never say that about stories. I like to believe people. I especially if they tell me face to face, I can kind of read them and be like, oh yeah, this sounds like you actually experienced this. But lizard people, man, the people that see the lizard folks, there's a special breed, And there's a couple stories from like, I forget what it was, some military dude the
guy that killed his family because of the lizard people.
No, there's some staff sergeant or something like that.
There was a father that took his family down to Mexico and killed them all because of the lizard people.
Wasn't that recently?
In the last few years, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. And who knows, maybe they were, but
either way, like when you say the lizard people stories made you feel like somebody needed help. That's kind of what this story feels like to me. Like, yeah, there's a potential that there's something paranormal out there that resembles demons. I'll give you credit. I'll give you that much.
Sure. But what about, like, in this instance, like, would you say that this entire story is fabricated then? Or would you say that they're
fabricated?
Unstable?
I'm going to say it feels a little unstable because there's a lot. There's a lot in the story.
There's a ton, yes, but there's also multiple characters, which means
a lot of paranoia too.
Sure.
A lot of trusting people that are telling you this is what it is. This is what's causing it.
Shamans and whatnot.
Yeah, which is, a shaman's not a bad person unless
not that we know of.
Unless you're a Christian, then they're kind of demonic.
I like that you really enjoy speaking on behalf of Christians.
I'm saying that partially joking.
It's such a weird thing, but
I'm saying it partially joking because at a time shamans were kind of demonic in certain.
Hey, spoiler alert! They still kind of are. Okay,
they aren't. They just, how you follow your paranormal does not make you demonic or not.
Wow.
But anyway, going back, there's just so much in this story. It really sounds like this person is having an episode. And I don't mean, maybe this person experienced all this stuff exactly how it's written down.
Yeah.
And that would be terrifying.
It's a little chaotic.
Yeah.
But there's also, like I said, there's a lot of characters in it. So are you implying that the characters themselves exist? Or are you implying that the paranoia is coming from this person believing these characters exist and they cast out whatever it did, X, Y, and Z?
In my opinion, in this case, a lot of the characters or a lot of the bad things showing up are because this person believes they are.
Yes.
I do question bringing in a Corinthian priest or, if you're
it's easy to question because we don't know what that is.
Or, even like this person's going from one person to another looking for help, obviously.
Yes.
Let's just
Are they being taken advantage of? Is that what you're saying? That perhaps
I mean, the
they're
more
being used financially.
well, it's easier if you just kind of cycle between these different shamanistic type of personalities.
Sure.
We'll call the priest shamanistic in this case because they're all trying. Basically, he's looking for these people for the same reason, to help him get rid of whatever's
whatever
haunting
was
him.
thrown at me by a 50-year-old that needs a cane and other things.
Yeah, so
And has IBS. I don't know why you threw that in there. He's 50 years old. He has a cane, a hole in his heart, and IBS or something. And then he said depression, something, depression. I'm like,
well, one of the things you'll see with, and it happens in our genre a lot, and we have to watch out for, is people will just throw out like fact after fact after fact, and you'll get lost in them.
It's the Billy Carson effect, yeah.
It's not just Billy Carson. I mean, a lot of
he's
them
the
do
best at it.
I've even heard Graham Hancock do it at times, and he's more. I won't say he understands the process of communicating, but he still does it.
Sure.
Most of the time, when you see people doing that, it's like a Twitter account or some small ass conspiracy oriented YouTube account.
Oh yeah,
where they just throw out all these. Like I read a lot of books, so I've come across many books that will a whole paragraph of 15 different facts that may or may not be related, but it's so much that the only one you can grasp onto is the one you believe anyway. It's just too much sometimes, and that's what some of these grifters use.
Yeah, I'm most familiar with Billy Carson doing it because he would, especially on podcasts, if you watch him, the host will ask him a question, he'll rattle off 15 things and then be like, but now let's talk about this. Before the host can be like, well, wait a second, dude, I asked you one question.
Yeah, and that's a lot of them like that. And like I say, I know you don't like Billy Carson, but there's a lot of people like him, even, because we had mentioned doing something on Atlantis at some point, and I love talking about Atlantis and learning about it, but a lot of those guys that come up with their famous, solving of the case, they're doing the same thing.
Sure.
So there's just a lot in that story, too much almost for a sane person to be able to grasp.
Could have gone to ChatGPT and maybe narrowed it down a little bit, but like, hey, these are my feelings. Can you make me sound sane? Okay, thank you.
But also that would have been boring. I kind of like the fact that we had a chaotic story in here that kind of, and we may have listeners out there that have experienced this stuff.
Or maybe the listener that wrote this story is like, excuse me.
Yeah.
That happened.
I'm sorry, but like I said, there's just a lot going on. Get your mind checked first, always. And we should all get our mind checked, whether we go to an actual doctor or just fucking take a day to not stress. Mental health is a big thing, but
there you go.
Also, don't hang out with these people. If this old lady with irritable bowel syndrome and a cane is cursing you, don't let her anywhere near you.
There will be signs. There will be signs that it's time to get out of a relationship.
Like, how many people in this world will tell you all their problems and kind of direct it toward one particular person, whether it's a significant other or a parent or the devil, but they still let this person in their life.
Classic. Anyway.
Cut off the devil, man.
Cut off the devil, man. We're going to go ahead and close it out with this story by Robert Rowlett. Or Rowlett. Who cares? And it's called It Wasn't My Parents.
That's a good start.
Yes, it is. From the age
was my uncle.
Okay, getting into some sketchy territory now. From the age of about 8 to 11, a few times a year, I would randomly wake up at night to hear one of my parents calling my name. No, thank you.
Maybe you should have been a better kid.
Wow. Speaking of placing the blame where it doesn't belong.
Victim shaming.
Classic. When this first began to happen, I would answer the call with my name, and as soon as I did, I felt this presence, and there was this hair-raising, terrifying, growling hiss that would come from above my head. I would bury myself beneath my covers, scared to death. I had never slept with a nightlight in my room, but after this started, I asked my parents for one, stating I was afraid of the dark. I then thought maybe I was dreaming this, but it was clear I was awake, and then I began to pinch myself so hard that I would leave a bruise when I heard my name called, and every time I answered it was always the same terrifying sound. My mother, weird place for a laugh, Christian, this poor child.
Well, because it reminds me of a story about answering things like this. Remind me to come back to it at the end.
Okie dokie. My mother asked me how I bruised myself, and I told her what was going on. She said that from that point on, she and my father would always turn on the hallway light if they ever called my name at night, and never answer if it was not on.
That is brilliant.
That is actually a really smart move.
You need to put that one in your mental.
Yeah, way to go, Mom.
Yeah, that's a smart one.
My parents never did that. They're just like, what? You're not seeing anything. You're fine. Go sleep. I'm like, okay. All right. This continued to happen, and I would not respond if the light wasn't on. And what was more disturbing is I could feel the presence of this thing moving around my bed, waiting for me to say something. This eventually stopped happening. I don't believe this entity lived in our house, but maybe traveled around. To this day, I have some kind of low light in my bedroom and sleep with at least a sheet covering the majority of my head. LOL. Strange as an adult, but at least I feel safe that way. See, this shit, when you experience these types of things as a kid, it fucks with you. I still sleep with the light on. Like, it's dim, but I don't sleep in pitch black.
I need it pitch black.
I can't, no.
But most of my life, I did have a light on. And so, even as an adult, most of my life, a night light, until I started working on the slope and moved to Alaska where you have 24 hours of daylight.
Not fun.
So now it's like pitch black. But fascinating. Well, first, let me mention when I chuckled a little bit, because in a story earlier, I remember, I think I've talked about him. I had a baseball coach from Hawaii, and he would tell us on our way to our baseball games creepy stories. And one of the things he said is, don't answer those voices if they don't belong to somebody.
True.
Bad things happen, he said. And he told a great story.
And he was right, turns out.
Yeah, he was a great storyteller on those boring trips to our high school baseball games.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when we go through a lot of these stories, or similar types of stories, not just mimics, the age that these people are experiencing it tend to be children.
Yes.
And I think that's always been fascinating to me, is why children
see these things more than
see or feel or hear. And, it's not cool to experiment on children anymore like it used to be.
Oh, man.
Thank God. But there is something there. There's some kind of enigma, or, it could be just the process of your brain growing up and new connections. It could be something scientific, but it could also
just be low-hanging fruit.
It could just be that they don't have the filters yet. That's why adulthood sucks so much, because we have all these filters. It's really hard to be magical.
You don't think from like maybe a perspective of one of these entities, let's say, like this one in particular, preying on this kid at night, pretending to be the parents, and then, making this ungodly sound whenever he answered. You don't think something like that, an entity might think that that's the best way to go about it, because your parents aren't going to believe you. So you can prey on kids and get away with it because they're going to tell their parents, and parents aren't going to do anything about it. So that thing can linger around as long as it needs to, because most parents are just going to be like, oh, that was just a bad dream, or that was this or that. Like, I think if we're talking about entities that have been around for as long as, time at this point, they got to have some pretty interesting tactics and know how to get away with things that, you've been around, you learn a few things.
But they really don't do anything still.
Hissing, I mean, that terrifying you to the point where you have to sleep with the light on for the rest of your life it may not seem like much, but like I said, I was terrified going to sleep as a kid because of this exact reason. I
was terrified as a kid too. So, I mean, I may act all smug at times, or I don't know what you guys would say, but I went through the same stuff growing up. I believe some of the stuff you believe now, growing up and into adulthood. So who knows, man? I just don't think that that's the case. I do like the way the parents said about the hall light, because that gives some power back to the child.
Yeah.
And that's where, when you're dealing with these things, you need to give a little bit of power back to your children.
Yeah.
Whether you believe it or not, because then they can deal with it in a way that's healthier. Because most of the time, it's nothing. Or even if it was something, most of the time it's something they can filter out of their life.
Possibly.
I mean, it's happened countless times when you listen to stories of us growing up, the shit we went through, and then we grow up and become adults and move on. It's just, so if you give them a little bit of power, they can deal with it. In this case, they're like, okay, the light's on. That is my parents. I don't need to worry.
Yeah. And that is a really smart move. And way to go to that mom.
Yeah. And the parents don't have to believe the child for them to do little things like that. They just need to help them. And that's what we got to do when they're experiencing things like that, is just help them through it. Not say, well, what you're seeing is not real, or bullshit like that. Because kids see all kinds of shit that's real to them.
And sometimes real in reality that parents can't tune into.
I mean, you watch your son make believe, and it's pretty real. I mean, I was watching him do something today when I took him out to lunch, and he was making facial expressions because he was so, and it's just make believe, but he's making he's living in the moment.
Every time he's make believe in something, it's based off something that he saw in reality.
Right. And that's what kids do. Kids are little mimics. Not in a demon way.
If he sees it in reality, it makes believe that.
Yeah, but also these days, reality is television and some different forms of entertainment. So it's kind of hard sometimes. What the hell was that? Was that a mimic making noise?
It's my thumb popping. My old man sounds.
So I don't know. I don't know where I was going, but
it was to the end of this episode, no doubt.
Yeah, it's a fun story again.
It is.
The one before this wasn't that much fun because I felt it was just...
It was chaos.
Yeah, I feel
it was wild.
And I've met people whose brains work like that previous story. I mean, imagine, the business I'm in, I still meet people like that sometimes.
I believe it's a daily occurrence for you most of the time.
And some of it's usually, some of these people that are like that tend to have used to have done other things.
You don't say.
Yeah. But either way.
All that for later when we talk about drugs for the 5 millionth time. For now, we're going to hit the old dusty trail around here. We hope you guys have a fantastic week. And give your thoughts on mimics, huh? What do you think? Demons? Tricksters? Entities? Spirits? Who cares?
Voices in your head?
Not that, obviously, but feel free to comment it below, and we will see you right back here next week for another episode of The Freaky Deaky, or The Frinkity Dinkity. Farewell.
Bigfoot is stalking by your window. A dog man is scratching at your door. Ghosties are walking up and down your halls at night, and the hat man is coming back for more. Your name is Christian, you love a can of beans, and you're the wettest blanket skeptic this world has ever seen. You're almost always wrong, it's quite an impressive streaky. This song has rambled on too long. Welcome to the Freaky Deaky. Your name is Christian, you're named ironically, because the only belief you have can be found in a can of beans. You're almost never right, and now you get roasted weekly. This song has rambled on too long. Welcome to the Freaky Deaky. Also, ghosts exist, just an FYI. Aliens are feeling blue. The Ouija demons lonely because they believe in you. Also, ghosts exist, just an FYI. Aliens are feeling blue. The Ouija demons lonely because they believe in you. Also, ghosts exist, just an FYI. Aliens are feeling blue. The Ouija demons lonely because they believe in you. Also, ghosts exist, just an FYI. Aliens are feeling blue. The Ouija demons lonely because they believe in you.